What is up, Internet? So it is almost Memorial Day. It's almost Memorial Day weekend. And being a fair weather rider here in Colorado, for me, that kind of is the demarcation of the beginning of road trip season. And the first road trip is going to be on that bike. We're about a week and a half out from Memorial Day weekend. The plan is to take Friday off, ride down to Albuquerque, eat some good food, hopefully hang out with the Grand Trooper maybe on Saturday, eat some more good food, ride back Sunday, and maybe eat some more good food for breakfast before we leave. You see the theme here. I like to eat. So we got, I don't know, I wouldn't say a lot. We have a lot of little things that we need to knock out on the bike, and then like two big things. Two big things being the side fairings. They're not on the bike. They're still white. And we've got a little bit of fiberglass repair work to do, and then we need to prep them, wrap them in vinyl. So I don't know if I'm going to get all that done, but it doesn't matter. I'll ride the bike down there with white side fairings and the rest of it being orange. I don't care. But we're going to start off with a number of little things that we need to get done and build some momentum, gain some confidence, and yeah, let's get to work. Now, I rebuilt these brakes. This is a radial master cylinder. So back in the 90s, everybody was still running axial master cylinders. So this is an upgraded radial master cylinder. We've got obviously new brake lines, rebuilt calipers, new seals and everything. I think I actually reused the pistons on the front calipers, but the pistons have new seals on them, dust seals, oil seals, or I should say brake fluid seals. Rebuilt master cylinder here, another new brake line, rebuilt caliper with new pistons and seals. We just need to throw in some new brake pads. Never installed these, so let's get this done. Okay, that ended up being a little bit more of a pain than I anticipated. So the old brake pads were wore down pretty thin, which means we didn't have room to put the new brake pads in. So I had to drop the caliper, compress the pistons back into the caliper to make room for the new pads because they were just that much thicker. And that was a bit of a pain because, well, it wasn't too bad. Fortunately, I had a C-clamp that fit just right. Basically, you stick a small socket inside the piston because the piston's hollow on the inside, and then you use the C-clamp to compress against the piston. That worked out pretty good. The other thing that's a pain in the butt are the springs because they need to go underneath the pins, and so there's tension. So you're trying to hold the spring down while you're pressing the pins through the pads, and that's a little bit tricky. I think what works the best is to do one pad at a time. Do the outside pad, get one pin in, then put the spring underneath that, and then you got to have the right size, like stubby flat tip screwdriver, something to press and hold the spring down on the other side so you can get the second pin in. Then just repeat the process for the inner brake pad. But we cleaned up the pins. I just used some like finishing sandpaper just to get the scuff off of it, and then a little bit of grease, and same for the shims, the back plates that the piston actually press against. Clean those up, greased them, so we are good to go. Keep in mind that when you press those pistons in like that, the first 3, maybe even 4 pumps on the brake pedal, there's not going to be any pressure and you're not going to have a brake, so you need to make sure you pump that sucker good. Doesn't hurt to bleed it. I don't think I need to in this case, and I'm not going to, but don't do brake pads like that where you've got to compress the pistons in to make room for the new pads, and then just jump on the bike and go for a ride. Pump the brakes, get your pressure back, and test them really good before you ride the bike. On to the next. And yes, it is the next day. I have a baseball cap on and a hoodie because Colorado's weather is schizophrenic, and it's actually kind of chilly today, and it's a little chilly. Not bad in the garage, but whatever. Next thing we're gonna do is replace this rear set. Nothing really visible wrong, except I think I spotted a crack right there. I'm not sure. But the point is, I destroyed the rear set on the other side many years ago, and Bought a new set, but I only replaced the bad side on the right. And today we're just going to put this new one on, and we'll have matching rear sets. We can see the pegs are quite drastically different. But anyway, the point is just to have matching rear sets on both sides. And we'll just keep this one as a spare minus this, what looks like cracked peg. So maybe this is a good thing. Could you imagine like standing up and this thing just like folds on you? All right, so my new rear sets are made by Woodcraft, and obviously this piece is going to bolt up right here. Save your original bolts because you need to reuse those. It doesn't come with new bolts for the mounting to the frame. So this piece is going to go onto your peg. The peg is got slots in it to fit into these little slots here. Just going to go like so. And then it's going to lock in like that. So this piece here can pivot around. And then this piece, the actual shifter mechanism, is going to bolt to that. And then you've got your toe piece for the end of the shifter. And lastly, we're going to probably take this off and replace the one that's on here, which I'm sure it's perfectly fine, but we might as well just do it. And I'm going to basically take the approach of assembling as much of this as I can before putting it onto the bike. And the last piece will probably be connecting this to the shifter linkage thingamabob right here. I'm going to use Loctite pretty much everywhere because this isn't something I anticipate taking back apart ever, or at least not for a very long time. So we'll Loctite everything up. Some people freak out when you use red Loctite, but I am going to use red Loctite. It's not that big of a deal, people. So I think I forgot to turn my camera on as I have already partially assembled this, but a couple of things. One, I got a little happy with the Loctite. I use red Loctite everywhere. I think it would be a lot easier to put this piece and the black piece together first and then slide the peg in and put the bolt in the back through the peg. And the reason why I say that is because these are pretty tiny Allen keys and you can't get a full rotation. You can get like a quarter of rotation because the Allen key is hitting the peg. So that took a long time. They're very fine threads. You do have to turn them a lot. And they also, trying to turn it so it shows up in the camera, but they are countersunk and they actually recess in pretty far, which is good. But I just didn't expect them to go in that far. But at any rate, I would suggest putting these two pieces together before putting the peg in. I put a little bit of grease on the peg where the black piece kind of rotates around. Red Loctite on these three, and that's it. We're moving forward. All right, just figured out this is actually a reverse thread. So I was trying to break it loose and it was just getting tighter. So I thought, hey, let's try the other direction. And so just note that at least on this bike, the adapter here on the end of the shift shaft is reverse thread. So the other thing too is I'm trying to keep this lock nut in position, hoping that everything will be kind of the same. And I'll get the shifter into the same position nice and easy, but we'll find out. All right, there's the finished project. Finished product, all bolted up. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, product. The finished product. Real quick tip for those of you that have a shift linkage similar to this, if you want to go to a GP shift, in other words, that's 1 up and 5 down, all you got to do is loosen this one bolt here, pull this off, flip it around, put it back on, and that will reverse your shift order. Pretty stupid simple. Now, for me personally, the reason why I ran GP shift was because I was actually racing on track, and the reason why you want to be able to upshift going down instead of putting your foot underneath and coming up was so if you were coming out of a left-hand sweeper and it was a long sweeper and you needed to grab a gear, you didn't have to risk putting your foot underneath the shifter and hitting the ground while you're leaned over. You can have your foot on top of the shifter and press down and grab an upshift. So that's, I think, one of the main reasons why people run GP shift, but I think some people run it on the street because they think it's cool. But it doesn't really matter. If you want to do it, it's super, super easy. Pull this over or pull this off and then flip it up, put it back on, and you're shifting in the opposite direction. Not all bikes have a shift linkage that make it that easy, but this one does, and my ZX10 does, and it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of other bikes are that easy to shift. Now, only thing I did wrong was I haven't tightened down the Allen bolt back here. So I'm going to have to loosen these two up to get a little bit of clearance because I don't think there's enough room to even get an Allen key in there. So I'm going to loosen these two, get a little bit of clearance so I can put an Allen key back there and torque this down, and then I'll torque these back down, and then we'll be done. This is ghetto as all get out, but these are racing rear sets. So usually your brake pedal has a hook that hangs off of this somewhere, and then the spring coming from your, where's it at? I think it's up in here. It's right here. I'll get a shot from the other side so you can see it better. But there's a spring right here. The brake pedal pulls that down. That triggers the rear brake light. But these racing rear sets don't have a hook. So, dude at the local bike shop, racer himself, kind of sponsored like all the local guys. He gave me this spool. He's like, oh, you'll never need another spool of safety wire ever. And you know, here we are 25 years later, and I still have boatloads of it. So, I think he was probably right. But this is the safety wire that I would use to safety wire my bike. So in order to get through tech inspection, you would have to have your steering stem safety wired, you would have your brake caliper safety wired, and you even had to safety wire your oil filter. And you're like, well, how do you do that? So basically you put a hose clamp, a really big hose clamp around the oil filter, and then you run safety wire from the hose clamp to something on the bike, like this hose here or this spout right there. I took 2 pieces of safety wire, tied them together, and then safety wired the spring to the brake pedal, and now I have a brake light. And this is not going to come off. Like I said, this is the stuff that you use to safety wire the whole bike and get through tech inspection. So I'm not worried about it coming off. I just want it to work. So I also pulled a couple plugs, cylinder 1 and 3, just random. I mean, there's 4, you know, I could 2 and 4, 4 and 1, whatever, 2 and 3. I just wanted to pull a couple and check them because I did rejet the bike. Because the last time the bike ran prior to getting it running, I was living at sea level in Virginia, and then we got it running, what, 2 years ago now it's been. And I rejetted it. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like super lean or super rich. The bike feels pretty good, like quarter half throttle, but then when you like open it up 100% throttle, it feels a little bit anemic. And I can't tell if it's just because I've been riding leader bikes for the last couple of years. It's just been so long, I'm not sure what it's supposed to feel like. But I just wanted to make sure it wasn't super rich and I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I foul spark plug and then I'm running on 3 cylinders. Or you know, the worst would be if I leaned it out too much and it got hot and burned some rings or something like that, burned a valve, whatever. That would suck the mostest. What do I got left? I think the only thing I'm gonna try and get done before like 2 days, day and a half, is the rear turn signals. They're mounted, but they're not wired up. So if I can get those wired up, I've got the brake pedal, brake light, Jetting looks good enough to go for this trip. I got the new foam on the airbox. If I get the rear turn signals working with the fronts, then we'll be in pretty good shape, I think. We'll be all right. Check my air temperature, set that up, put the bags on it, just fucking roll with it. I hope I rebuilt the fuel pump really good, because I've only put like 230 miles on the bike, something like that. I reset the trips once I started riding and got it registered and all that. I think it's like 230. That's not a lot. It's not a lot in 2 years, and it's not a lot in general, so we'll be all right. We'll be all right, I think. I was successful getting the rear turn signals wired up to the bike, and so we got the left and right side fairings installed with the OEM front turn signals. We got turn signals, we got brake lights, we got mirrors. We're good to go, man. So this picture was actually taken the morning of riding down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can see I've got the bags mounted, my tank, my magnetic tank bag. So stay tuned. There'll be one video for the ride down, and there'll be one video for the ride back. You guys know what to do. Keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you in the next video.